What's going on, man?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Welcome. Look, just want to go ahead and take this opportunity to hello and welcome to the S.I.P show. We had a little issues there logging into the show, but we are good to go now. Look, first of all, how you doing today?
Man, I'm wonderful. It's been a while. I'm glad to be back on the show, man. I know.
Yeah, man, it's been a minute. We about to be in this thing though. We look. With everything going on in our society, man, it's been a lot these last couple months. You
Yes.
know, it's often been hard to not act out of emotion. For weeks now, I can't say that a day has passed that I haven't watched some act that has honestly turned my stomach or made me grit my teeth, often in outrage. Whether it's been police brutality against the very people that they're sworn to protect, racism, hatred, riots, or just straight up blatant disrespect. For this reason, I feel that we have a responsibility here at the S.I.P show to ensure that the message of right versus wrong doesn't get screwed or lost in the shuffle with everything else the media and other outlets have been broadcasting and promoting. I have been plagued with the question of how we could contribute. I know me and you have talked about it and discussed it. How's the best way that we can move forward? What could we really do to help when so many are looking for answers and voices of reason? It's for this reason that today, man, I am excited to start this new series entitled Becoming the Solution. We have we have to have conversations with people that don't look like us and
Hmm.
don't maybe not necessarily think like us. Yes, it's true that they may never walk in our shoes and we will never walk in theirs. That doesn't mean we can't understand each other's view and help to make life a better place for all of us. Conversations do matter. And
Yeah.
today, dude, I'm excited about today. I'm excited about introducing our guest for the show. You want to add anything before I introduce our guest?
No, I don't. Conversation started.
Yes, let's get this conversation started. So, today, our guest has been recognized by Baton Rouge Business Report as one of the most influential women in business and the top 40 under 40. Honored as the Alumni of the Year in 2017 by Louisiana State University's College of Human Science and Education. She is a native Texan, a wife, mother, friend. Honestly, I enjoy the fact that I can call her friend, and a servant to the community. Join me in welcoming our guest to the show today, Managing Director of Carter Global, Dr. Beverly Brooks Thompson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, John. What a pleasure to be
Clap
here
it up, clap it up.
with an old friend, Jeremy, and a new friend, Damon. So I really appreciate the opportunity to visit them.
We are excited and so thankful to have you here with us. Somehow, I think I lost my co-host there for a moment, but we're gonna get him back in. He should be coming on right about there. He goes.
There he is.
So, David, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of welcome our guest and welcome everybody to the show today before we get into this conversation.
Well, yeah, everybody, welcome. I believe it's a conversation that needs to be had, ongoing conversation that needs to be keep going also. But I'm so excited. You took time out of your busy schedule to talk to us,
Well,
and it's going to be a great show. I appreciate you.
you too. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
It is. So, okay, so we've had a lot of things going on in the news. And I just wanted to, I know I reached out with the invitation, but I wanted to ask you and give you an opportunity to share with everybody. Why do you feel it's important that people who look like you have a part in this discussion?
So that's really a hard question, but I believe all conversations start with relationship, right? And it's impossible to have a one-sided dialogue with yourself. I mean, otherwise you're just talking into the mirror. And I think we collectively have to be open to a discussion on specifically race relations and equity and our purpose in the universe. And if we think this is only a Black issue or a white issue, we're never going to come to the table. And I mean, true dialogue and true change comes through understanding. And it's not until we have tough conversations that we can even need an understanding of where are you? How are you feeling? What are you thinking? It's no different than a friendship. It's no different than a marriage. It's no different than a co-working relationship. If you're trying to solve a problem by yourself, you're going to come up with only your solution. But it takes other people to fix it. I mean, you're not the problem, right? The understanding is a problem. The lack of understanding, specifically from people that are white or Caucasian, our understanding is not there, right? I think we have to be open and humble enough to say, I don't know your experience, and don't let me pretend to know. So let's talk about it. And how can I fix it? I want you to feel welcome, right? And I want to feel welcome. So we have to be willing to do that.
Very true. Damon?
Yeah, I like what you said. It's about relationships, right? And in relationships, we have to have tough conversations. You know,
Absolutely.
um, I'm married. I've been married for 13 years. I have to have tough conversations with my wife
Daily.
about things. Just like you're in a relationship with people, so you have to have these things. So, you know, we can no longer keep sweeping things under the rug, right? We can no longer keep not talking about the issues that's happening. And like you said, if you have that compassion, you have, feelings for other people, no matter what race they are, you'll want to care about the issues that are affecting those people. Like they saying all the time, if you're quiet to what's going on, you pretty much agreeing with it, right? You pretty
Right.
much uh, saying it's okay.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think in this, it's complicit. We're
yeah,
complicit. If we don't have a conversation, right?
Yeah, one of the sayings that I've adopted, I heard it somewhere not long ago. Silence is compliance.
Right.
yeah,
So not saying, there was a time when it was okay if you saw it. Look, that's not my fight. I'm not in that. That ain't my business. It's not, that's not for me. I'm gonna let them figure that out. But now it's by saying that you're saying it's okay for that to happen.
Right.
And I think that is the big difference now.
Yeah. I think not for the first time, but the larger collective is now saying, oh, I really hear this for the first time. Now, I think I came to this a while ago, some of the uncomfortable, challenging issues that we're facing, but it's like an onion peel, right? I'm peeling back layers to that. So, as people are coming to the place where, oh, I'm hearing you differently, that's good, right? So, but if I don't, if I reject that, then I'm compliant with bad behavior. It's like
Yeah,
sitting back and watching.
yeah. So look, before we ask our next question, I do want to jump out there and let everybody know that's tuning in. You can get involved in the conversation by posting your comments. We can see your comments, and we throw things out there. Like I got to make sure I give a shout out to A.B. Mitchell. He wanted me to tell you. What's up, Beverly? Yeah, he's good people. We're going to have him a guest on the show real soon. So we're excited about that. Look, so next question. Do you feel there is a such thing, and I'm just going to have to go there. Do you feel that there is a such thing as white privilege?
Absolutely.
Explain, and what are your thoughts on it?
Absolutely. it took me a long time to understand that terminology. And I think when particularly white people initially hear white privilege, they think of it in terms of privileged wealth, right? I have the privilege. You come from a privileged environment. Well, some people come from a privileged environment, i.e., they have lots of money. Some people don't come up from a privileged environment. And that's how people interpret the word initially, very frequently. And that's not what it is. What it is I'm driving down the street at 10 o'clock at night and I get a flat tire and somebody stops and says, "Ma'am, are you okay? We want to make sure that you're safe." You stop in the middle of the night and perhaps your experience is a little bit different. And there's no difference as you look, right? So I grew up and I heard the term "pretty girls open doors," right? Yeah, if you're pretty, you can open a door, right? There's a privilege in that.
Yeah.
That's not silly. I mean, but it's kind of part of the lexicon. It took me a while to understand what that privilege was, and it wasn't. I got it, and I sensed it that I was treated differently than some of my Black friends or Black coworkers. And the first time I really got angry about it was I was the advisor at LSU 20 years ago now to the African American Culture Center and the Black Student Union. So the Black Culture Committee of Students, clearly I am not Black.
I was there.
Right? So there was a whole discussion around that being, can I do my job regardless of the color of my skin? I can file the paperwork, I can do the administration. And the reality is that there had been an African American woman in that role and she left. And until we could find somebody who had a shared experience, that's kind of it. Well, we held an event that's actually really popular at LSU called Harambe. And Harambe means
Harambe, yeah.
Right? And so 5,000 students, LSU and Southern students at the Assembly Center. And the police lined up after the event. And I would say there was easily 30 police officers at an event with 5,000 students. And after the event, and it was like a speaker. I mean, it's very academic, it's a convocation and a speaker and a prayer and some singing, and there was a step show, but there was nothing like crazy about it. It wasn't like a concert. Well, the police lined up in the floor and the students, all 5,000, are hanging out on the floor of the Assembly Center, and the police walk kind of arm in arm and tell everybody that they have to go, like, you have to go. And I was furious because I was like, these students are just hanging out and it's all about them having a sense of community and getting to know each other on campus. And frankly, we want people to feel really welcome because in many cases they had jumped the hurdle. They had never been to a predominantly white school, and we wanted people to feel welcome. And their first experience was being walked out of the Assembly Center on my watch. And I was my hair was on fire. I was so mad because the week before there was a country and Western, old white guy. And there were 4 police officers.
And they had a lot of more people there.
It was full,
Yeah.
and they had 4.
Mm-hmm.
That was also on my watch, and I kept thinking, but like the disconnect, it was like cognitive disconnect, and it was the first time I ever sat in the shoes of needing to protect my students, right? And not that I was protecting them from the police, because the police didn't harass anybody, they weren't ugly, but it was the simple fact that for this particular event, they thought it necessary to have 20 police officers for 5,000 people. And at another event, they thought it necessary to have 4, and it was 10,000, old white people listening to a country music artist. I got it. In that moment, I was like, this is what it means. Now, the term white privilege was not part of that. But so 20 years ago, I started peeling back layers, and I could never say I understand the Black experience, because I'm not. I can't say I've walked in your shoes. But what I can say is I started knowing what I didn't know and asking questions differently, because I had to stand in the shoes of my Black students and say, how is this going to affect them? How are they going to be received? How is this going to be received? Why would we, when they started the Black Student Union at LSU, I was like, why would you want a separate seat at the table? I need to understand that. There's a student union. Why would we need a separate one? I didn't have an understanding. I didn't have a context for that. So, it's a peeling back of the onion, if you will. But do I think absolutely I am treated differently than a 18-year-old virile Black man in a hoodie in South Baton Rouge? Absolutely. I would be ridiculous to say otherwise by anybody. And that's not just a police issue. I can walk in Walmart on College Drive and know that I am treated differently by the management than one of my son's African-American friends, period.
Yeah.
I can pull it in the parking lot and people are going to ask me if I'm okay. And I doubt you would have the same experience.
Yeah. I gotta give a shout out. I got a chance to, I heard about it, but then got a chance to see today. Representative Ted James made some comments on the Senate floor on yesterday. And if anybody hasn't seen it, I'm sharing it on my page. And he talked about what we don't, the conversations that we don't have, and that we need so desperately to have. I know I jumped in on there on you, Damon, so I'm gonna pitch it back over to you.
Yeah, Ted is a big and anybody, it's the House of Representatives. If you go to Google and you Google Louisiana House of Representatives, yesterday's video, you can see his testimony on the House floor, and it was to study and correct me, particularly AB, because I know he was watching it too. They wanted to put a commission to study police brutality and police reform. And, really, let's start having the conversation. It's just a task force. It's not even a law. It's just, we're going to put a group together. And it became very incensed.
Okay. Damon?
But yeah, to answer the question, yes, there is such thing as white privilege. Like you just mentioned Google, right? You can actually Google this stuff. It's not like it's hidden. It's not like maybe your eyes just been closed, or you really haven't been noticing it, or maybe you didn't want to notice it. But like you said, I've been treated different my whole life just because I'm Black. And it's probably different for Dr. B because he's bigger than me. He'll probably be seeing a threat before I'm seeing a threat, right? So, as men, as Black men especially, we are perceived as, angry, or we have these perceived notions about us that's not necessarily true. And it can, downplay us for different things. It could, for if it's interviews for a job, if it's anything that,
Absolutely.
Something negative just because I'm a Black man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So can I tell the audience how we met, Jeremy?
Sure, go right ahead.
So Dr. Blunt asked me, we were trying to figure out the date. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a minute. It's been 12, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
You were the training officer or commanding officer at the LYCP program. And this was really not a Black and white issue. So I want to be clear about this. But he came to me and asked if I would do etiquette lessons for the students. Now, because of the nature of the program and because of our, frankly, incarceration rates and a lot of reasons, I would say predominantly African American or Black students. I don't think I'm mistaken about that.
It's a good over 60% of them, yeah.
But largely kids that have gotten in trouble in some way, shape, or form, and they're looking for a second chance and doing whatever. And kind of the end of the program, it's like we brought them to LSU in the chancellor's dining room and taught dining etiquette and taught business etiquette. And Damon, you brought this up. You know, it's how do you walk in a room? How do you dress? How do you shake hands? How do you whatever? And I realized that not and using the word privilege in a different way, that if you've never sat in a white tablecloth restaurant because you don't have that experience, and you go on a second job interview and you don't know what should I wear, how should I order, you may not get the job. And that's privilege, right? I wasn't taught that. I didn't have that privilege, but I know, and it was interesting last week, and I'm going to, and AV can chime in. There was a group of Black men that went to the legislature, and they were all in suits, and it's like, if I showed up in a hoodie versus I show up in the suit, I'm still Dr. Blunt, right?
Yeah.
But how tall are you? 6'8", 6'6"? I mean, like
6'5".
I'm a big old girl. I don't even come up to your shoulder. But if I were standing next to you in a Walmart parking lot, I'm betting, and you're in a t-shirt, I'm in a suit. Somebody's gonna ask me if I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm betting if I'm standing next to you and you're in uniform and I'm in a business suit, they may think you're my bodyguard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to think you're Dr. Blunt, right? It's that, and it's because of the way we're portrayed in the media. And that's a problem, right?
And
So
it's what
those barriers down. Like we got to lead by example.
yeah. And it takes those of us that know to do it. And it takes us holding each other accountable.
Absolutely.
And being willing to say, hey, no, you can't make those comments. You can't say that. No. And when you notice it or when somebody brings it to your attention, like, being able to say, hey, we might need to re-examine this, or we might need to look at this. And it is what's called a learned behavior. And unfortunately, it was learned way back before we even realized. So it's an unconscious bias. It's an unconscious bias that we have so much. And that's what, and I mentioned, I said we were going to answer it later in the show, but I think we're kind of answering it now. One of the comments, one of the questions that somebody had, Real Gotti made the comment about basically asking, what are we going to do when all the marching and the protesting stops? Let me tell you what everybody needs to do. Continue holding people accountable. And this is where, the ploy is to those that don't look like us, don't look like me, don't look like Damon, for the rest of them that have joined in this movement to not leave it when the protests stop.
I agree.
Still, this is not, it's nice to protest in front of everybody, but this is a no in your everyday life. Go ahead, I know you're trying to jump in.
It's for show, right? And I want to address something, Mr. Gotti, and I really appreciate your question. It's something that's really weighed on my heart. What happens when it stops being part of the, like the next thing comes? We can't afford the next thing, right? Because it's costing lives. Now, I'm going to read the rest of your statement and start killing back. I'm never in favor of violence under any circumstance from anybody. I don't think violence is an answer, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that I've been mad enough to throw stuff across the room and wanted to strangle somebody. right? And we've got a collective anger and rage right now that I want to acknowledge. That is real, and it is deserved. It may not be being received particularly well, but I hear it, I see it, I understand it. I get that kind of anger and frustration. But I want to be clear that I would not want violence for a number of reasons. I don't think we need any more incarcerated people in our state.
It's counterproductive.
It's just terrible, right? But I think the point is when the rage stops, we have to be willing to have the hard conversations.
That's right.
And I'm hoping that today is a good piece of that. And I'm so thrilled he's on the line, but it kind of goes both ways. I've asked Jeremy in the past, I need you to vouch for me. I asked him when I was running for office, I need you to vouch for me in your community that I'm a welcoming person, I hope, right? Like my actions speak louder than words and whatever. So as the noise lowers and we start to conversations, I think there has to be a receptivity among people to say, okay, now we're talking. And I said this the other day with the police chief on a call. I said, you're in graduate school right now because this has been your experience forever. And on behalf of everybody, we're just getting to the table. We knew there was kind of a problem, but we really didn't get that there was a problem. So we are in pre-K. And so some of it is, I need you to be patient. I need the collective. I may be 20 years in of an awakening, a moment, but I know this much of the experience. And so the patience and the understanding, it's almost like you're dealing with, a 6-year-old. You got to get me to where you are. And now that I'm hearing you, I'm hearing, and I can only speak for myself, but I've talked to a lot of my friends that they're like, okay, I'm starting to acknowledge that there's a problem. Where do I start? And the answer is you start with yourself.
That is it. That's
it. Start and say, I acknowledge that I don't know. I know what I don't know. I don't know. And I, as a white person, have to take the responsibility. But in that responsibility, I think collectively, we need our Black friends to understand we're just getting to the table, and the histories that we have learned are very different.
Yeah, and this is not it's not an overnight solve, and that's the part that that is so important for us to understand. That yes, there's going to come a day where the protests are going to stop, the riots are going to stop, and people are going to go back to what they consider normal routine. However, this is a process, and the only way to maintain this thing called momentum that is going on right now is that you keep this on the forefront of conversation, and that's where accountability comes in. Damon, I don't want to leave you out of this. Go ahead, jump in there, brother.
Yeah, man. Just take small steps, right? You take a step at a time, and then next thing you know, we walk the mile by taking one step at a time. As long as we continue to make progress, continue to make these baby steps, it's going to turn into bigger actions. It's going to turn into bigger things. But I want to jump into the next question. That's what I want. Okay. So, we talked a little bit about how we'll be treated by the police, right? So, do you believe there's a reason why it's an increase in police brutality in the news lately, or do you feel that it's just the media magnifying it?
That's a really hard question. And I used to be married to a first responder. I'm not a police officer, but I understand the danger of people walking into rooms where they are going to get shot. And I understand the collective of people that are walking into rooms to protect other people and, there might be a fire. So that being said, I have an incredible respect specifically for first responders because I've seen it firsthand for a long time. That being said, I don't think it's just a few bad apples. Right. I think collectively, and not ever worn a uniform, there is such thing as racial profiling. There is such thing as if you look, walk, talk like something in my experience, this is what it is. But I was really impressed with our police chief in Baton Rouge recently because he was talking about the fact that officers, and he gave some statistics about officers writing more tickets in particular neighborhoods. Well, if you hang around a neighborhood, you don't write a ticket. They're just not hanging around my neighborhood. Right? So I promise you, my 3 teenage boys who had lead feet and drive a little fast down College Drive, if controlling, they would get tickets, right?
Yeah.
They write the tickets. So that being said, the brutality, and that's the key word, right? It's not just the unconscious bias and let me be lazy and do whatever. I would suggest it, and I don't know that we have any proof to this, but there's always been violence and there's always been a challenge. This happened.
Yeah, that's right.
This happened. And I'll give the riots in 1991. I think it was 1991 in the early 90s. Riots. Some of that came to Baton Rouge. You know, we had some rioting. We're not talking protesting. We had some rioting. This didn't exist.
Right.
I can't tell you what happened in the streets of Baton Rouge. I know it was ugly because I was married to somebody who was in it and was afraid and got strangled and all of those things because he was trying to protect people. But this didn't exist on either side. So I think maybe we see it differently. I am glad that, you know, I have a phrase, and I've always said it: sunshine disinfects. You keep something in the closet long enough, and it's going to start to smell. And you keep it in the dark and hidden, and it's gonna rot. Mm-hmm. Bring it out in the sunshine, and sunshine.
Yeah.
Sunshine is disinfecting right now, right?
That's right.
And so I don't know what the shift is. I suggest that it's not just the media hype of it, and I think that is real. But I think we are seeing it because I watched Alton Sterling be murdered in 2016. I watched George Floyd be murdered and call for his mom. And I'll tell you what, you didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to say, why do I think this is different? Because you have activated mothers everywhere. You call.
That's good. Yeah.
White girls don't show up. I get that. That. Right? Even if I didn't get it before, I heard a man screaming for his mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I guess here's my question. When we're dealing with, you already mentioned about police and what's going on. There's a lot of looks right now at the police department as a whole. And that phrase reform has so many different contexts.
Sure.
But we do know that something has to be different. What would you feel do you have an opinion of what that should look like?
I'm not an expert. I get hung up on being an expert because I want to leave it to experts. But what I will say is I'm an addict. And I have been in recovery for over 8 years. So I was really maybe not involved, supportive of and noisy about and loud about the Bridge Center that the tax that passed for the Bridge Center. And the Bridge Center is essentially a place where if I'm pulled over with the DWI for the third or fourth time, we got a lot of people in jail for that when they really need to be a detox. We have a lot of people with behavioral health issues that we're locking up, right? So what I know from that experience is that we're asking our policemen to be social workers.
Yeah.
We're asking our police officers to be addiction counselors. We're asking a lot and putting a lot of pressure, and it becomes law enforcement. Now, that's not making excuses for bad behavior, but I think it's kind of like the teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're asking our teachers who are supposed to teach to be trauma counselors and to counsel poverty and to counsel behavioral health issues. We're putting a lot on the plates of teachers. So I think reform and understanding is really important. And it's not just a police problem in our community, right? We need social workers. And when people talk about reform or defunding the police, my understanding is, and it's a very light understanding, is it's not that we think we shouldn't have police. I think everybody thinks we should have police. We need police that are trained in diversity and inclusion. We need, instead of a police officer, in some cases, a social worker. Instead of a jail, we need a detox. And I think that's a collective challenge across the board. I will tell you, I am in huge favor of our police chief because he is now, and our mayor has made a commitment and said we're going to change this in Baton Rouge after the 2016 shootings. I say shootings plural.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to Alton Sterling is horrific. White people, in many cases, changed the narrative after our police officers were horrifically shot. Neither of those should happen, right?
Yeah.
But we don't get to ignore one because something else terrible happened. That's like saying this person was shot, but it's not important because the house burned down. I mean, those are two separate tragedies and incidences, and both horrifically violent in very different ways, right?
Yeah.
So police reform, I think, is important. I do know that other parts of the country are starting to look at Baton Rouge as a potential model for that. I think we've got a very, very long way to go, but we have at least opened our eyes and said, okay, we need a Bridge Center. I can't wait for that to open. Because I don't think people deserve to be in prison. And if you can't, on June 19th, a lot of bail was paid because people just can't pay their bail. They don't deserve to be in bail. I just happen to have a checkbook. Right? I mean, same kind of violations and things like that. So I don't think it's just a reform of the police. I think the system's broken in many ways. But so long answer to an uneducated, but my observation is I think people who want to spin the narrative are saying words like we're going to defund the police as opposed to reform. Nobody is saying that we don't need police.
Mm-hmm.
We need police officers. It's not that, we're just going to walk around and we're going to be back in the Wild West. It's let's shift some money and training to have social workers and addiction and put the onus on trained professionals in those particular fields. And there are people that know a lot more about that stuff, but I am now paying attention a little bit differently. So.
Okay, let me give us a quick shout out real quick. Bishop Dr. Young made a comment. He loved your comment. Mothers are the most powerful creatures on the planet. They make things happen. Look, I'm going to kind of fast track because we have, this has been time well spent. I'm only going to ask you one more question, and then I have some comments that I want to address. Whether or not you want to stick around and add to them, that's on you. But what is next for Dr. Thompson, what's next for Beverly? What's
Like in general,
just in
or
general?
in relation to this conversation?
Let's do both.
Okay.
Let's do both. What
Uh,
would you like to see happen next?
okay. I believe that we all have to own the place where we are planted, and we need to grow where we are planted. So I'm not necessarily going to pick up a big banner and try and change the world. What I'm going to try and do is change my world and the
That's
people
it.
in it, right? So, and I'm going to do things personally that I have a skill and ability to do. And I'm going to show up when I'm asked. I'm going to have hard conversations. I have a group of women that are Black, white, Asian, Indian. There's 12 women who are now hearing things a little bit differently. So there are black women married to black men in that group. There's a white woman married to a black woman, to a black man with a biracial child. There is a white woman who has a white husband with an adopted Asian child. Like it's a collective group. We're going to start reading hard books together and having hard conversations. Because, and I've heard this said, I think many of us who are trying to have an understanding have that person that we call. And I have that person. I have a couple of women that I've been friends with for 20 years. And I need to ask you a hard question, right? So in 2016, I read an op-ed by my good friend, Chris Tyson. And it was a call to action for me. It's the first time I ever showed up at a protest, which was a Black Lives Matter protest. But I thought it was important for people that looked like me to show up for young Black kids that were having a protest. But this op-ed was a call to action, basically. And it was talking about North Baton Rouge versus South Baton Rouge. And if you're not in Baton Rouge, what that means is the black line and the white line. Essentially, the poor and the wealthy. So if you're in South Baton Rouge, regardless of your color, you probably have some money and have education and things like that. And Chris was talking about living on that line and how many white people had gone to North Baton Rouge and invested or shopped there or whatever the case may be, besides going to Tony's Seafood or going to the airport. I died inside because I have been invited. I've been invited to people's homes. I have been invited to attend church. I've been invited to weddings. And in that moment of reading this op-ed, I realized I'm not racist. I don't see myself as a racist. I don't see myself as bigoted. I have unconscious bias without question on things just because I'm understanding. But in that moment, what I realized is I'm not racist. I'm lazy. I've been invited.
Wow. Hold on. You said that so fast. I got say that again.
I'm not racist. I'm lazy.
Yes, that's
It
good.
is my problem. It is my problem. What happened to Alton Sterling is my problem. And the reason it's my problem is I can draw a line from my house to the place where he was murdered, and it's less than 3 miles.
Wow.
And I have never been to that corner as an adult.
Wow.
And what brings a man to have to sell CDs on a street corner every day because that's his only option? And if I'm really going to put my work into workforce development, and I'm really going to do, work in economic development and all of the things that I think I do, that's now my problem, right? So my problem has to start at home.
Yeah.
I believe I am a generation breaker. The proudest moment I have had, and it makes me cry, the proudest moment I've ever had is I went to the Black Lives Matter march that the Brooks students put on in 2016, and I was marching, and I was admittedly afraid. I was admittedly worried because of my position at that time at Women's Hospital as the president of the foundation. I didn't want to be seen next to a sign that was incendiary to police, because these are my friends, right? These are people I know, but I was worried about that. And I turned around and I looked and I saw my, at that time, 18-year-old son. I didn't know he was going to the march. And so 20 years ago, I decided I was going to be a generation breaker, and we were going to talk about race differently in our house. I decided that we were going to break some barriers in our house and the way that we do things, from addiction to race relations and having conversations about sexuality and all of the things. All of that was going to be acceptable, and we're going to learn together. And so I invite people, if you're new to this conversation, being new to the conversation is having the conversation. And we need to bring that to not just my safe friend, Emmy, that I asked the question, like, what is your experience in this? Because she was my friend that I would call. And I have a lot of very diverse friends, and she's just someone I felt safe with. And I was able to ask questions with and say, if you were out at 11 at night, what would your experience be? If your fiance was out at 11, what would your experience be? And I had the conversation about my kids. And when I taught my kids what to do when they got pulled over by a police officer, it was say, yes, sir, no, sir, hand them your license and registration, and don't reach for anything. But it wasn't put your hands up.
Yeah.
It wasn't worry for their lives. It was worry for my insurance going up, right? So I have friends that I had those conversations with. So for me personally, what's next is I'm bringing those conversations to bigger groups. I'm sharing the way in which I uncovered these things about myself, and what shame I felt in some of those, not because I had necessarily acted in a manner, but I really just didn't understand. I was raised in a house where I was told that everybody was equal, and we don't see color.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative that I was given was very different than the narrative that you were given.
Yeah.
I had never heard of Selma. I had never heard of, besides what I read in a very whitewashed history book, it wasn't part of my family's history that had been passed down in an oral history. So my history and my training wasn't so much be bigot, be racist. It was everybody's equal. So that's why I say that we're coming to this in kindergarten. I had never heard of Black Wall Street. I'm embarrassed to tell you, till 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
I have 4 college degrees. I'm pretty well educated. How is that not in a history book? Right? So, but that may be an oral history that you've heard about. I know about the Baton Rouge bus riots, not kidding, because I read it in the airport.
Yeah.
Because there was a display. And it's not because I'm uneducated. I'm lazy. It's my history. My history is different. I could tell you anything about Texas history because I learned it 3 times.
Yeah.
Right? But I can't tell you about Black history or African American history. I'm just coming. So what I'm doing is becoming educated on what I don't know. So what's next for me personally is really diving deeper into what I don't know, and frankly, helping other people that I know and care and love and work with to walk through that experience and trust people like the 2 of you and AV and other people to help vouch for me, and that if I make a mistake, you're going to tell me, and you're going to call me out on it, and hopefully use me as a conduit to reach some other people.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was, I know it was a hard answer, but it's the answer that was needed. Damon, you have a comment before I jump into what I want to kind of share?
I do have a comment too before we close the show out. We mentioned about reform just now, right? But I think a lot of companies need to be reformed also. So
I do a lot of that work.
you've been seeing a lot of companies, Netflix or whatever, Procter Gamma, with this Black Lives Matter, they posting it, right? But this is what I want to see. I want to see how your boardroom look. I want to see if you got people of color in your boardroom. I want to see
See
if you
all
got
those books right there? That's what
mid.
I do in my real world. Is I do board development, and it's not have a black person on here because you need a black person on here. It needs to represent the universe that we live in, right?
Yeah,
Hmm, that's
so that's
good.
reform that I'm waiting to see too. I want to see Netflix. Let me see how your board level look. Let me see how your mid levels look. I don't want to just see your lower employees saying I hired some minorities just because I want to have them hired. You know what I'm saying? I want you to see people who's qualified. I'm not saying just
Well,
hire
I mean,
people because they're black or because
diversity
they're
and inclusion makes us better. It makes us stronger, thought, ideas, that sort of thing. I want to see that too. So in my professional world, I'm doing everything in my power to have those conversations in really hard ways. And I throw in things like there's a bunch of old men in the room. Where are the women?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are the young people? Where are the not rich people? Where are the. Let's break down. If we're going to have a power structure breakdown, let's break it all
Let's
down.
break it all
Yeah.
the way down. That's right.
I don't want
Now,
to take away from this. But, I mean,
yeah,
this,
I agree with you
this
wholeheartedly.
is a start.
There's this thing called culture competency. And I got an opportunity to sit in on a webinar, and honestly, I've sat in on, I can't even count the number of trainings, webinars are live and in person. And this was probably one of the most phenomenal trainings I'd ever been in. I'm putting something together specifically to talk about it because in today's world, today's society, folks, this is not, and I want to be clear, this is not a white versus black.
Yeah.
This is not a police versus African Americans. This is a right versus wrong. That is really what the problem is. That is really what the issue is. So I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle of everything else is right versus wrong. And I know people's, your right versus wrong is based off of your mentality. It's based off of what you view as right as wrong. And that's where so much of the challenge comes because how are there's a saying that says, a person's reality is their reality. So you can't, no, you can't say what I see, what's my reality. Neither can I say what's yours. But I got to be open enough to recognize that my reality is not the end all. That I got to be open to somebody else's reality. So before we close out, I do want to, I want to make a couple statements. And, I see your comment, Real Guy. I asked you to please patiently wait until, because I wanted to address it. I'm outraged. I'm disturbed by a lot of the things that I've seen and so many others. And yes, I have degrees on the wall and professions, but, I get pulled over. They don't see my degrees on the wall. Let me tell you what the difference maker is. And this is the phrase that I've been using for the last couple of weeks. If somebody is in a ditch, you don't jump in the ditch to save them. You be the one to pull them out of the ditch. And I like the way Michelle Obama said it, forever First Lady. She said, when others go low, we stay high. And
What?
I get it.
What? What?
I get
When
it.
we go low, we go high. You see that? That's how my
Oh, I
brain.
see it. I love that. I get it. We're upset. I get it. We're mad. But here's the thing. You know, Acting out right now and acting out when it happens, I get it. You feel justified in the way that you act. However, justification is not the same thing as validation. And acting out and just doing because somebody, you feel like something, and it has. Wrong is a wrong, but two wrongs don't make a right. So going back out and doing wrong is not how you solve the problem. The way that you solve the problem is somebody got to be the better person. Somebody, it's a conscious choice. It's not a one, it's not a decision, it's a choice. It's a choice that you make on a daily basis. And you also have to understand, I know you're tired, I know it keep happening, but it works like this. We are equally responsible for keeping the momentum going. We were equally responsible for keeping this on the table, to not letting it slide by. Because here's what has happened in the past. Things have transpired, things have happened, and things have died off, and then until the next thing happened, till the next shooting happened. And we've gone through this cycle for as long as I can remember. Well, what makes this one different is because somebody or some people finally said, we're not just going to take the banner down until we see a difference. That's not a protest. That's not a riot. That's not a march. That starts as an individual. You have to make the decision that I'm going to be better, and then be open to learn. When you made the statement about it being lazy, can I tell you, it's not just y'all. It's laziness across the board, because anytime you choose to not educate yourself, to not move past, it's one thing to say, well, I'm in this box and this is all I'll ever be. Well, guess what? That's because you chose to be in that box. You chose to stay there. You have an option. Yeah, we can look for an excuse and we can say it's other people and they're holding us back and everything else. Well, if you look around, there are plenty of people that have made the adjustments. So the real question is, how open are you to make the adjustment? And that adjustment is going to look different for each one of us. That adjustment is going to look different at different moments in our life. But the same way, you mentioned that you didn't know some things and it had to do with, hey, we are the same way you grew up not knowing those things. Those were a cornerstone for us growing up. But at the same time, there are things that you learned that we didn't. But I got to jump back to this real quick because you.
Absolutely. Well, can I answer this question, Mr. God? You say, how do I feel about having this conversation about what's going on in the world? It's a lot. And how do I feel about being uncomfortable? Let me ask you this question. How many times have you walked into a room and been the only Black man? It's time for me to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That never occurs to me. You walk in a room, if you're the only Black man, it doesn't occur to me that you're the only Black man. Right?
Yeah.
So it's okay that I'm uncomfortable. What I'm asking you to do, and you've just shown me today, and what I'm asking everybody to do is be willing to accept that I'm going to fumble and I'm going to be uncomfortable because I literally don't know. So that's exposing me. We don't want to not know, right? I don't want to sit at this dinner table and not know what fork to use. That's why Jeremy and I teach dining etiquette, right? I want people to have that advantage. So understand, I don't know. And it's as simple as I don't have the playbook. I need you to help me with that. So it's okay that I'm uncomfortable.
And it works like this. You can, one of my sayings, the reason why we did those etiquette class, because I took flack for it. Why are we doing that? Some of them have never used it. Well, here's the thing. You can never exist in a place you've never been exposed to.
That's right.
So a large part of the reason why is because we choose to limit ourselves to that box. Well, if I want to exist in another realm or on another level, then guess what? I have to be comfortable there. And it starts with me being uncomfortable there first. So this is a point, I honestly, tonight's conversation, I know we're out of time. I've enjoyed tonight's conversation so much. I'm asking everybody that has viewed, everybody that has commented, everybody that watches in the replay, that you comment about this, share it on your page, because we need to have more conversations like this. Dr. Thompson, I can't thank you enough for being here.
We're friends enough that you asked me, and I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll definitely be in touch soon. We'll definitely be in touch soon.
Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, so, dude, that was good.
Yeah, man. Good
Man,
conversation.
that was a good talk. That was a real good talk. I just, and look, one last thing, Guy, I appreciate you hanging in there and listening to all of this. Look, we also have to remember, and we have to remind ourselves, this is not going to be an overnight solve. This is not just going to be, this is not just going to be a one fix all. This is going to be a process. And it's going to be a process that we need to be the generation that started it, that initiated it, that got the wheels of turning, that, the good book says that a good father leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Well, this is about my grandkids who aren't here yet, my great grandkids that aren't even thought of yet. It's about those. I'm thinking about them and the world that they will come up living in. Yeah, I want them to live in a world of equality. It's based off of what I do now, how I choose to act. Just because somebody else acts out toward me, don't mean I gotta get down. I don't have to get in the ditch with them. I gotta go back to that. You can't save them if you get in the ditch with them.
Yeah.
You save them by staying up and pulling them up out that ditch. And no matter what it is, you don't get down there in there with them. So that's all I got. What you got, big dog?
Man, that was a show, man. Kind of, this is what kind of leading me for us. This is challenge of the day, right? This episode was about becoming a solution, right? So I want to see some hashtags about some solutions that we can do, that we can be a part of. If you got a company, if you know of a company that's doing changes in the community, something that's really empowering us, that's what I want the challenge to be. I want to see that. So hashtag the SIP show of what you're doing to becoming the solution.
Let's also hashtag it, becoming the solution. What have
Yes.
you done to curb the tension, to reach cross party lines? Because a lot of this is us wanting them to do it all, but we also got to do it. And can I just say this? Because I just got to be real. Part of the reason I believe that they don't, and it has taken some of them so long to speak up, and you know who I'm referring to when I say them, is the fact that if they speak up, then they're abandoning everybody else that looks like them, their way of life. And what happens when they abandon their way of life, the only things that they've known? Are we going to accept them? Are we going to take them in as ours? Let's be real, because some of them, we'll give them more flack than they would have got on the other side.
Yeah.
So we got to be open to, hey, that we're open to that also. So it's work. It starts with us. It starts with us. Yes, they got their part to do, but we have a part to do equally as well. So today's show was good. Becoming the solution. I can't give kudos enough for Dr. Thompson for taking time out of her schedule to be here. I mean, she's real. She's a real one. And, those are the type of people for her to ask us to keep her accountable.
Yes.
Those are the type of questions that we need to hold others to and ask others. Can I keep you accountable? I don't want you to like me today and that be it. And tomorrow you act like you don't know me when we walking down the street. I need you to know me every day. And I need you to be on this wall all the time. So any final comments, big brother?
That's it, man. I can't wait for part 2.
Part 2, yes, it's coming up 2 weeks. We're gonna be in this thing with another special guest. I'm excited about this thing. This has been another great conversation. So look, thanks so much for tuning in. As this is what we do here. We look forward to seeing y'all in the next show. Again, hashtag it, share this, let other people know, and we'll see y'all next time.
Peace. Love y'all.
Thanks for joining us today. This was another awesome conversation. But more importantly, we were excited about the fact that you were a part of it. So even if you're catching the replay, we always go back and check out our comments and information from before. So make sure you leave your comments in the comment section. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and of course, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel to know where we'll be at next, when we'll be in a city near you, and also when we'll have another episode that you can be part of the conversation. Remember, this is the place where conversations matter.